Shalom and welcome to the weekend edition of the Daily Dose of Hebrew. Looking today at Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 2. In verse 1, the Lord had warned his people that the destruction, the long-announced correction, chastisement is coming from the north. And we've got a little verse here that's going to be describing what the Lord's going to do. It looks very simple, just a few words, and we're going to find out it's a little more complicated than we think. So let's go ahead and read it in Hebrew as we get started. Hadnava v'hameunaga damiti batzion. Well, it looks like we're starting out with something with an article because we get this hey with the dagesh and over here. So, and then we have this word nava. Now, what is that? Well, most commentators think that what we have here is an adjective. This would be a feminine adjective from, and actually the lexical form of this would be na va, like that, with an aleph in there, and you'd have a comments over on this end, and just a simple segol like that. So it'd be nave, which means comely or beautiful. And then the aleph would drop out. It's a weak consonant, and it's not totally unusual to have that aleph drop out like that. So most of our commentators and translators are going to take it in that direction. There is another possibility because there is a word that's spelled exactly like this, nava, which means pasture or meadow. And you're going to see that that kind of shows up in a couple translations and complicates it. It doesn't seem to make sense, though, in this context. Like I said, most of our translation is going to go with this idea of comely and beautiful, especially in parallel with the following word. Now, once again, we have a conjunction here, just the and then another article right over here with the ha, with the pathak and the dagesh, and meunaga. Here we have, again, a feminine. Well, what we actually have here is probably a participle. It's a feminine singular participle, and this one is a pual. You can see that you got this meme at the beginning, you've got a schwa underneath it, you got a doubling over here, so you really do have all the classic signs of a pual participle, and this would be from the verb anag, like that. Put it in parentheses because we don't find it in the cow. We usually find it in the hithpael. It's not, although it's not very common. And this means to be soft or delicate, may even have the nuance of being a little bit weak and pampered. So it would be, you'd understand it in parallel. If this is an adjective over here and this is a participle that's being used in its adjectival force over here, soft, well, over here we'd have comely and beautiful and yet delicate or pampered perhaps over here. Well, what are we talking about? Well, we're going to be talking about the daughter of Zion, which is a reference to Jerusalem over here. And then we have this verb, damiti. Well, what do we have here? Well, as it's written, it's a perfect, although we're going to find in the context that even though it's a perfect, which usually has a completed action, generally in the past, we may be looking a little more toward the future about what the Lord is intending to do here. So it may have a future aspect to it, even though it's in the perfect aspect. So, and this is probably with the T ending on it. Obviously, it's going to be a first singular, and this is probably a cow, and the form that it's written here anyway. And from the verb dama, with a hey on the end, the final hey is showing up in the yod right here. Now there are a couple verbs dama. And we're going to take, as most of the translators are going to take this, is from the second verb dama, which has a homonym, which we'll talk about in just a second, which means to cease, or to, in some respects, to cause to cease, even in the cow, or to cut off. So it can mean, it can also have the nuance to reduce something to silence, or more generally to destroy. And if we take that in that sense, it would be I have destroyed, or I destroy, or I am determined to destroy the daughter of Zion. Or this may be more of a vocative. So comely and pampered, I will destroy the daughter of Zion. So these would be two adjectives in that sense applying to the daughter of Zion. And so the Lord is going to destroy them. Now, we said that one possibility for this word over here is also the idea of pasture or meadow. Keep that in mind. There's another possibility for this over here. If we take it from the other homonym, dama, that's a verb which also has the sense of to be like, to be compared to something. Usually in the Cal, it's I am, it would be something is like something else. In the PL, it would have the sense of I am making a comparison. I'm comparing this one to something else. Usually, though, when it's being used in a comparative with the sense of to be like or to compare something to something else, it's compare to followed with a lameth or followed with the preposition el, to compare to something else or compare to something else with one of these two prepositions, which we don't find over here. So that's one of the reasons most of our translators don't think it's from the verb to be like, but probably from the verb to cease or to cause to cease or actually to destroy. So and then, O daughter of Zion, of course, referring to Jerusalem. Now, have I got you totally confused with all of this? So what we may have with our reading here is the comely and the pampered I will destroy, or I have destroyed, but probably in a future sense. I am determined to destroy the daughter of Zion. This may be an appositional force with the implied subject over here. So, but you're going to see a couple other possibilities as well. So, now if you're totally confused with that, let's look at a couple of translations, and maybe that'll help us a little bit. We'll hide our work here, and we'll go up, and we'll look first of all at the New Revised Standard Version. I have likened. Now, see, they've taken this dama here, this verb here, which is a first common singular, and they've taken that in the first sense of it to compare something to. I have likened daughter Zion. Now they're making this as sort of the direct object of this verb. Now I'm not sure about when you make a direct comparison, this would probably be in the PL stem instead of the cow. This is pointed as a cow. The PL would have a heric here instead of the comets, and probably have a dogish in the maim. But at least it would be the same consonant. So it's possible, although I'm not sure about that. I have likened daughter Zion to the loveliest pasture. Well, they're taking Nava up here as the pasture. They're not explaining this conjunction vav here, and then they're translating this delicate in the sense of perhaps lovely here. So I'm not too convinced that this is the best translation to go with, but you can see sort of how they get there by taking a couple of the possible translations here. Let's look at another one. Let's look at the Old King James here. I have likened, so they've done the same thing with the verb over here, taking that from that other sense of the verb, the daughter of Zion, taking that as a direct object, to a comely and delicate, comely, okay, so here's the comely and the delicate. And then woman, they put in parentheses because these are both feminine adjectives, so that would be implied. So this makes a little more sense, perhaps, but I'm still not convinced about this verb being used here, because this it would have to be read as a PL probably, and I'm not sure that's the best reading for it. Let's look at something else. How about in the New American Standard, which is very typical of the vast majority of the translations of this passage. So this is more the standard translation that you're going to find among the ESV, the NIV, Christian Standard. Most of the others are going to go in this direction. The comely and dainty one, so very literal, the comely and the dainty one, the daughter of Zion, so here's the apposition at the end of the phrase, I will cut off. So they're taking this in the second sense of dama, the other verb, written the same way, instead of to compare something or to liken it like something. This is more than likely the best way to do it. And as I said, most of our translations are going to go in this direction. So this also is more what you find, this sense of the verb here is what you're going to find, for instance, in Hosea chapter 4, I think it's in verse 5, where the same verb is used, and there it clearly has to be used in the sense of to cut off. I will cut off, with exactly this form here. And then one other translation we'll take a look at, actually more of a paraphrase with the New Living Translation, like I said, a paraphrase. O Jerusalem, so their daughter of Zion, they're interpreting that for that to be O Jerusalem, though they're going to pick up the word daughter down here at the end. You are my beautiful and delicate daughter. Well, you don't have you are, and you don't even have the my, but beautiful, comely, and delicate. Okay, but I will destroy you. So they're sort of interpreting a little more, putting in a few more words to kind of fill it out, but that seems to be more the general sense. So here's the most literal translation, and in my opinion, the most likely translation. Here's sort of the sense of what's involved with it, but you will see a couple other possibilities as well. If you want some more work on this verse and the possibilities involved, take a look at the notes in the Net Bible, because they've got a good note on this verse on Jeremiah 6:2, and that will explain some of the possible variations that you see in your translation. So hope I didn't confuse you too much on that one. It looks simple. It was a little more complicated, but the Lord is going to be dealing with his people, and he has more to say in the following verses. So check back with us soon in the for our next edition, weekend edition of the Daily Dose of Hebrew. Shalom.